where we've got a seriously unique double feature lined up for you. We're going to explore how human problem solving shaped ancient institutions, and then on the absolute flip side, how it drives modern consumer engineering. We're looking at the mechanics of civilization itself, from the darkest economic systems of our ancient past right up to the highly practical design choices of our modern present. Okay, let's dive right in. Here is our roadmap for today. 1. The prehistoric logistics problem. 2. Agriculture and economic surplus. 3. Writing, law, and justification. 4. The generational engine. 5. The modern shift to the 2027 HRV. And finally, 6. HRV tech and value. Section 1. The prehistoric logistics problem. We really have to ask this provocative question right off the bat. When you think about the origins of slavery, it's pretty easy to just assume it was always an inherent part of human society, or maybe the invention of some specific tyrannical ruler. Well, the YouTube channel Deep Epoch has a phenomenal video that tackles this head-on, taking us deep into the anthropological record. And you know, the answer is absolutely fascinating, because it wasn't a single evil genius who suddenly invented chains. Actually, it was a slow, terrible convergence of shifting economics and human survival strategies. Because before owning people made economic sense, it was quite literally a logistical impossibility. Think about it. For early mobile hunter-gatherers, taking captives was a massive logistical nightmare. I mean, if your group is nomadic, moving 10 or 20 miles every few days to follow herds or seasonal vegetation, you literally cannot drag an angry, uncooperative prisoner along with you. It's just a terrible survival decision. They eat your precious calories, they slow down your travel, and they're constantly waiting for a chance to escape or get revenge. In a mobile society, wealth has to be portable. But contrast that with the agrarians, the societies that finally settled down. The exact moment humanity tied itself to a specific piece of land to grow crops, stationary labor became incredibly valuable. Section 2. Agriculture and economic surplus. This is a chilling thought, but the cruel breakthrough wasn't discovering how to capture people. Humans have always engaged in tribal warfare and taken captives. No, the paradigm shift was discovering situations where keeping them alive actually became profitable. You see, farming completely changed the fundamental math of human survival. Suddenly, an agrarian society realized they could force a captive to clear land, plant seeds, and harvest grain. If that captive produced, say, 3,000 calories of food a day, but only needed 2,000 calories to survive, boom, they're generating a massive caloric profit. Keeping an enemy alive suddenly meant acquiring highly valuable, surplus-generating labor. It was a shift born purely of cold, calculating economic utility. So, independent societies all over the globe essentially stumbled into this terrible economic solution, creating a devastating feedback loop where human capital led directly to concentrated wealth. It started with raids, which brought in captives. Those captives were then forced into heavy labor, clearing irrigation canals, tilling fields. That labor created an agricultural surplus. And what happens when a society has a surplus? Well, the ruling households don't have to farm anymore. They can use that surplus wealth to fund professional warriors, who then go out on more raids to capture more people, to generate even more surplus. Success simply reinforced and expanded this dark system, literally building the foundations of early empires. Section 3. Writing, Law, and Justification. It's fascinating, in a very dark way, to trace how localized violence gradually evolved into massive state administration. Pre-writing, captivity was just unwritten rating. Brutal, for sure, but informal. But as these early agrarian societies grew into massive cities, they had to track their wealth. So by the 3rd and 2nd millennia BCE, you've got Mesopotamian scribes pressing styluses into clay tablets, effectively creating the world's first spreadsheets. And right there, mixed in with the inventories of grain and cattle, were inventories of human beings. Fast forward to the 18th century BCE, and the Code of Hammurabi explicitly codifies this into law, detailing harsh punishments for anyone who helped a captive escape. Writing didn't create the crime, but it definitely gave it paperwork, with the state firmly stepping in to act as basically customer service and enforcement for early slave owners. Now, it's crucial to distinguish ancient practices from the modern racialized chattel slavery that emerged centuries later. The fundamental horrifying core was exactly the same: the legal claim to another human's labor and freedom. But in the ancient world, it wasn't based on race. It primarily came from warfare, as we just discussed, but it also came from debt. This was known as debt bondage. If a severe drought hit and the harvest failed, an independent farmer wouldn't be able to pay his taxes or feed his family. To survive, he would literally have to sell his own children, or even himself, into bondage to a wealthy landowner. Section 4. The generational engine. The absolute darkest stage of any institution is when a society uses its legal and cultural tools to make the horror of human ownership feel perfectly normal. I mean, to sustain the system without constant warfare, societies implemented heredity. Children automatically inherited the captive status of their parents, meaning the system just reproduced itself. Furthermore, it became completely culturally entrenched. Priests and leaders would frame this hierarchy as the natural order ordained by the gods, or they'd rely on early stereotypes to claim certain conquered groups were simply destined for labor. Culture, religion, and law all worked together in unison to justify the hierarchy, turning an absolute atrocity into civilization's everyday, unquestioned furniture. Section 5. Modern Shift, 2027 HRV. All right, we are making a massive pivot here. We're stepping away from the heavy history of ancient institutions to examine human problem solving through a completely different, highly modern lens. Today, obviously, our everyday challenges aren't about establishing agrarian empires or surviving in a hunter-gatherer tribe. Our problems revolve around modern mobility. How do we navigate crowded cities, deal with volatile gas prices, and find decent parking spaces, all while comfortably moving our families and our gear? Well, Honda believes they've engineered the smart standard to solve this modern problem with the 2027 Honda HR-V, which is a vehicle designed strictly around practicality and everyday utility. Honda really gets that when you're solving the modern commute, simple is usually better. They've given the HR-V a clean, sophisticated exterior. But honestly, the real engineering magic happens on the inside. They've utilized this very open, horizontal interior layout that maximizes literally every square inch of the cabin. It completely avoids that claustrophobic feeling you get in a lot of smaller vehicles. With nearly 38 inches of rear legroom and rear headroom, adult passengers can sit comfortably in the back without having their knees jammed into the front seats. It is the ultimate modern packaging solution, a compact footprint on the outside so you can easily parallel park in the city, but a remarkably spacious, well-padded environment on the inside. Under the hood, the HR-V delivers exactly 158 horsepower and 138 pound-feet of torque. This comes from a highly reliable, naturally aspirated 2.0-liter four-cylinder engine paired with a continuously variable transmission, or CVT. Now look, is 158 horsepower going to win you any drag races? Probably not. But in the context of consumer engineering, it is exactly the Goldilocks zone for a daily driver. It provides more than enough power to merge safely onto a busy highway or get up a steep hill, but it's constrained enough to keep the vehicle incredibly efficient, saving you serious money at the fuel pump over the lifespan of the car. And check this out. When you compare the standard front-wheel drive model to the weather-ready all-wheel drive version, the efficiency gap is remarkably narrow. The front-wheel drive configuration gives you an impressive 28 miles per gallon combined, while the heavier all-wheel drive system only drops slightly to 27 miles per gallon. This means drivers in snowy or rainy climates don't have to suffer a massive penalty in fuel costs just to get the traction and safety they actually need. For daily commutes, grocery runs, and those weekend family trips, this is exactly the kind of balanced, predictable fuel efficiency modern drivers are looking for. Section 6, HR-V Tech and Value. What I really love here is how Honda handles safety. They treat comprehensive safety not as some expensive luxury package for the upper trims, but as a standard necessity built right into the base vehicle. The entire Honda Sensing suite is standard across the board, so every HR-V actively helps you drive, with automatic emergency braking that can spot pedestrians and lane departure assistance that gently steers you back if you start to drift. You get adaptive cruise control for highway traffic and even road sign recognition. And it pairs all this vital safety tech with everyday conveniences, like an available 9-inch touchscreen and wireless charging, giving you exactly what you need without overwhelming you with a cluttered, complicated dashboard. This is where the value proposition just hits the nail on the head. With pricing starting at $26,600 for the LX model, the HR-V offers modern capability, generous space, and top-tier standard safety without demanding a massive financial sacrifice. Even if you fully load it with premium features on the EXL trim and you add the $1,500 all-wheel drive option, it remains incredibly accessible. In an era of crazy inflation and shrinking consumer budgets, this is really a masterclass in providing what drivers actually need without the unnecessary fluff. It directly solves the modern consumer problem of finding reliable, safe, and comfortable transportation at a price point that actually makes sense. So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this final thought to chew on. Today, we bridged an incredible gap. We looked at how early humans, faced with the grueling economics of agricultural survival, engineered sweeping and dark societal institutions to consolidate wealth. And we looked at how, today, we engineer our modern convenience, prioritizing efficiency, safety, and value just to navigate our daily lives. Our tools and our systems change dramatically across the millennia, but that core drive to solve our everyday needs, for better or worse, remains the absolute engine of the human experience. Thanks for hanging out and learning with me today.